Good afternoon, everybody. Apparently, we're live on the YouTube. Yeah, YouTube. So good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Eco Lunch and Learn that is presented to you by Beth, Bermuda Environmental Sustainable Task Force, and Bermuda College. And we've been doing this now for 7 years. 7 years, yeah, and hopefully keeping it going on into the future. So this lecture, I'm very pleased to welcome Eimeir Johnston, who has been delivering design solutions to clients in the UK, Bermuda, the US, and beyond for 20 years. She looks very young. Her multidiscipline design background started at the Dublin Institute of Technology, where she gained a first-class honours in interior architecture and furniture design. A passion for natural materials and sustainable design solutions led her to further her education and includes a leadership in energy and environmental design, LEED, AP qualification, and a master's in science postgraduate certificate in environmental design of buildings from the Welsh School of Architecture at Cardiff University. So without further ado, Eimeir is here to teach us about some really interesting things. Thank you, Eimeir.
You know, I have a cold today, so hopefully that doesn't impact in any way. So yes, I'm going to talk about sustainable residential interiors. And I wanted to ask you, have you ever bought an organic chicken? Understanding that you spend more on a product that is sustainably grown, where the welfare of the animal matters, and where the end product is better for your own health and the health of the planet. Now, let's think about a purchase you might make only once in your lifetime, a product that you will live with for the rest of your life. Would you put as much effort, if not more, into researching it? Would you think about the best ingredients, the best processes, and ideal conditions for that product to be healthy for you and for the planet? What about the lifespan and ingredients in your solid surfaces, your cabinetry, your millwork, decorative beams, hardware, fixtures, fittings, fabrics, and all the other products that make up the interior of your home? Products that you touch, sit on, crawl on, lick, hopefully just your children, make up the interior of your home environment. Have you ever thought about the ingredients and life cycle of those products? Well, I have. My name is Eimeir Johnston, and I am the founder and director of Eimeir & Co. We're a design firm based in Bermuda, working locally and globally. I'm a multidisciplinary designer, straddling the world of architecture, interior design, interior decoration, and furniture design. I get involved in the macro elements, such as the structure of the architecture of buildings, designing the flow and layout of a new build or renovation. I also spend time in the micro elements of a project, choosing finishes, fabrics, furniture, designing custom millwork, and even types of hinges or screws to be specified for my clients. In between both these extremes, I work alongside my clients and many other professionals, designers, engineers, architects, builders, tilers, masons, landscapers, and so on. One thing I'm always is part of a cohort or a team. I recognize that fact in the name of my company. It's not just me, it's Eimeir & Co. Co-workers, collaborators, colleagues. In terms of my background, this is my education. Amy already introduced that. I've been living in Bermuda for 17 years. Prior to living here, I was based in London for 5 years, working between interior design, interior architecture, and furniture design. I've always had a deep interest in sustainable design. This started at university, and around this time, I was introduced by one of my professors to a book called Cradle to Cradle by Michael Breinhardt and William McDonough. This book had a big impact on me and really changed the way I thought about how we design and make products, the processes of human consumption, and our waste streams. The authors introduced me to the thinking that there's no such thing as waste. Waste should equal food. There's no such thing as a way. The concept of waste equals food is kind of an odd one. Sometimes people ask me about that. They proposed two separate systems, a nutrient cycle and an industrial cycle. Products that went into the nutrient cycle would be wood and wool and anything organic, and products that went into the industrial cycle would be technical materials like plastics or steel or things that could be infinitely recycled. Both systems should never coexist together. They should be kept separate. So their ideas stuck with me, and I still think about the materials I use in projects as potential food. Is it junk food for the user, fast and easy to consume, or slow food, good for your health and the health of the planet? As we move away from breathable buildings of the past, our homes have become more energy efficient. Our buildings have become, on one hand, much more comfortable, but on the other hand, much more airtight. According to the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, this indoor environment is where we spend 90% of our time. Our more airtight indoor environments is now where the concentrations of some pollutants are often up to 5 times higher than the typical outdoor concentrations. Energy efficient buildings, when it lacks significant mechanical ventilation to ensure adequate air exchange, and the increased use of synthetic building materials, furnishings, fabrics, personal care products, pesticides, and household cleaners are the main reason for the uptake in pollutants indoors. Issues with indoor air quality is not just a Bermuda problem. And in the UK and US, there is a range of legislative and regulatory instruments to improve air quality, but few directly address the quality of air indoors. Luckily, this conversation has started in the commercial building sector in Bermuda. Even without specific legislation, industry is leading the way with voluntary building certification, with some really positive results. I believe we have 8 lead for new construction buildings and 2 more recently registered in the past year. This is really great, and I hope it starts a wave of change. Using voluntary certifications such as BREEAM, which is more of a UK-based system, and LEED, more of a US and Canada, and we use it here. This sector has taken big steps to improve indoor air quality for the building users, the working conditions of the builders, the trades that build them, the supply chain, and the product selections that make up the interior fit-outs. In the residential sector, however, we don't see a similar trend in Bermuda. As far as I know, there's no similar certification processes being pursued. Guidelines in the Bermuda Plan around materials and sustainable buildings are vague and generalized. And building an eco-house to no particular specification or guidelines can have risks for underperformance, overheating, or poor indoor air quality. It is usually better to design and build to a specific criteria. Even if you don't end up meeting all the targets, it can still be useful to follow a standard. This way, outcomes can be measured. One such certification we are seeing emerging in Europe is Passive House. This is a certification for residential buildings. It is considered by many to be the best in class. Just like LEED, it is a multifaceted approach and benefits the homeowners who are interested in superior quality and comfort, and the local authority or government in transitioning to zero emission targets. There are other certifications out there, other options that might be more suitable to our unique island living. Researching this and finding the right fit is a worthwhile endeavor that I feel needs some attention. All we need is one project, one brave client to take the first leap of faith and follow a residential certification pathway for their home. Once it's been explored and proven in Bermuda, I believe more will follow. So, anybody interested? Put your hand up. So it's not all doom and gloom. We are seeing a steady uptake in the adaptation of solar PV, energy efficient appliances, LED lighting, higher efficiency water tanks, pumps, and filtration systems, which have all helped to bring the energy use of the average household down. The main driver for this adaptation has been cost related. Government incentives help get the mindset shift started, but now that the products are proven to work in our environment and the infrastructure is here, the wheels are already in motion. In addition to energy efficient products, energy reduction and independence, our buildings outperform in the water saving categories with our roof catchment and holding tank system. This is great news for Bermuda. However, for a truly holistic approach to sustainable buildings, we do need to start a serious discussion around the materials we are using in the indoor environment of our homes. Where do we start? However, just like the organic chicken I mentioned earlier, when we look at materials and products for our homes, the mindset around spending more upfront requires a deep understanding of why indoor air quality matters and what options are available to us. If the designer can influence the client to use their purchasing power to make choices to create better outcomes for themselves and the planet, they need to be informed. How can we do this? Without the infrastructure, industry, and policy-specific guidelines in place, where do you start to make better choices? I like to start with some big picture approaches, looking at the macro view before the micro. These macro guidelines are used to steer the direction of the project towards more sustainable outcomes. Then I use micro approaches to work on the details to achieve the most sustainable product selection. Step 1. Here I'm talking about layout, architecture, and flow of the building. Studying your client's habits, understanding their needs, and build a framework to support their lifestyle, not an idealized version of what you think they need. This might be simply allocating enough storage space for a family into the floor plan, or creating a flow that guides the user into the space and is intuitive and easy to navigate. Look at the full life cycle of the building and try to future-proof for shocks. For example, sudden disability or multi-generational living. By having a step-free access point already designed into the building, there's no need to move home or renovate at a later date. Think about a home office, work area, or multifunctional space that could be used if needed. And what about aging in place? If this is truly a home that fulfills its function for the user, it's not just for today, it should be designed for the future user also. If the building can't fulfill its function at any point in its life cycle, then the user will ultimately abandon it. Step 2, timeless design. I always try to install natural, honest materials. Materials that are not trying to be anything else. Materials that can endure for generations. For example, real wood floors as opposed to vinyl wood look. Real marble or stone surfaces instead of laminate or other man-made alternatives. Brass, bronze, or copper fixtures and fittings without chroming or lacquer processes. I believe as these fixtures age over time and develop, a patina of use adds to their beauty. I always think about longevity. A simple way to check this is to ask, can the product be reused? Does it still have a value or a second life, even if it was removed from the building? Install the best that you can afford at the time, doing without if needed. For example, if you have to choose between installing a solid wood floor and highly efficient windows, or a solid wood floor and PVC windows, I would always advise my clients to go for the highly efficient windows and do without a solid wood floor, polishing the slab and not add a top layer. In effect, they're saving their money until they can afford to install the wood floor they really want. In the big picture view, waiting a few years to get the product that will last for multiple lifetimes makes sense. It is sometimes hard to grasp in our current world of instant gratification. To achieve timeless design goals, it sometimes comes down to the idea of building less square foot. The simple premise is use less materials equals less cost. In doing more with less, design smart layouts to be multifunctional and future-proof your project. That means it can still be affordable. Step 3, sightlines to nature. The modern assumption that humans no longer need to interact with nature is relieved in the widespread practice of placing people in sensory-deprived and artificial settings with little, if any, contact with natural forces and stimuli. Simple design solutions such as prioritizing sightlines to the outside can foster emotional attachments to setting and places. It has been proven that these emotional attachments motivate people's performance and productivity and prompt us to identify with and sustain the places we inhabit. In addition, live plants provide air purification. Live plants absorb harmful pollutants such as volatile organic compounds, VOCs, like formaldehyde and benzene, which pose serious health risks. NASA has even had a clean air study that has identified specific plant species as highly effective in removing toxic substances. Step 4, Indoor air quality matters in the big picture approach. Prioritizing materials that minimize off-gassing is crucial for holistic well-being. The composition of the home environment directly influences one's overall health. As discussed previously, we're spending more and more of our life indoors. So by selecting millwork, solid surfaces, furnishings, and accessories that contribute positively to indoor air quality, this aligns with the previous 3 steps that I've mentioned. Ultimately, we are creating spaces that promote a healthier lifestyle and preventing the user from abandoning the building. Now for the details. I hope you're ready for this. A good place to start with details is checking the labels. Just like the food industry, the building industry does not always have your health in mind when it comes to creating products, but that's why labels are important. Read the labels. Understand what chemicals are non-negotiable in your home. Carcinogens, toxins, and polluters are disguised in many products. Simple principles can guide you, even if you don't have the time to research every product. Just like food, the longer the list of chemicals, the worse the product is for the environment and your own health. Base level ingredients matter. Be aware that some great sounding materials, for example, 100% post-consumer recycled waste, can be harmful even when recycled. Recycled tires, for example, when they're recycled into rubber flooring, this still is a petrochemical product which will off-gas and has heavy metals embedded in it. Be aware of lead in post-consumer plastic. Lead is still present in the new product and can cause harm. Understand the label and ask, is it relevant to Bermuda? In Bermuda, we have no industry, we have no local materials to create product. Everything we need is shipped to the island. If we're lucky, we can find materials to reuse here, but they're not always available. Even our architectural salvage is mostly shipped in. Unlike in the local food industry, which produces limited but high quality produce, in the building sector, we are for the most part not sourcing locally made or previously owned products or finishes. A circular economy is difficult on a small island. Without the infrastructure for product leasing, repairing, refurbishment, take back for disassembly, and recycling at the end of use, many products that could have a second life end up in landfill. So we need to be mindful of what labels we choose to use. Understand, for example, that cradle-to-cradle label products may not work as designed in Bermuda. I brought the book for anyone that's interested. This is actually made from a polymer. It's not paper. They designed it so it could be infinitely recycled. However, in Bermuda, we don't have the take back for something like this. And the same goes for chairs that are designed for disassembly and all other products. So we have to be mindful of the labels. Label with cradle to cradle, we really need to check how it would be taken back or where it would go at the end of its life. Some of the most relevant labels on product guidelines can be explained in more detail. If we look, all right, lost my spot. Did that move? Okay. If we look in more detail at the millwork, flooring and countertops and paints that we bring to the island. The millwork items that make up a residential home are extremely varied in nature. Be mindful that sourcing items that are built to other countries' building codes or industrial systems can sometimes result in reduced quality materials. As always, think about reuse first. For example, using reclaimed wood from barns, warehouses, or architectural salvage. This wood does not only add character to interior, but reduces demand for new lumber. Salvage materials have no risk of off-gassing formaldehyde and are considered safe for good indoor air quality. Yes, we need to ship them in, but we need to ship everything else in too. Use solid wood over composite wood because it does not require binders or additives. However, traditional hardwoods, while beautiful and durable, can come with a significant environmental footprint. For example, exotic hardwoods or wood sourced from forests that are not managed responsibly. To mitigate this, we should always select certified woods. Plywood that's used for subflooring. It can be used in the boxes of cabinets, as structure inside sofas and other furniture. or even on the underlayment of structure and countertop. Plywood is bonded together with glues or sealants. Most glues have volatile organic compounds in them. Firstly, choose plywood made from sustainably sourced timber materials, FSC or similar certification. Then ask, is the plywood treated using sustainable processes? Are the wood veneers treated with a glue sealant that is formaldehyde-free or an ultra-low emitting formaldehyde resin? Plywood made with phenylformaldehyde rapidly reaches non-detectable levels. Plywood made with urea formaldehyde off-gases for longer, but it is up to 60% of the way there in 30 days. Plywood made from urea formaldehyde is generally avoidable, and in my opinion, it should be avoided. If we choose no added formaldehyde products, this means that no formaldehyde is added to the product. The glue is used does not contain formaldehyde. Sorry, I made that sound very complicated. They cannot be labeled formaldehyde-free because wood naturally contains formaldehyde. So no added formaldehyde plywood is made with soya-based glue. Pure Bond wood is one such product. It's intended for interior use like furniture and cabinets, but be aware though that it's designed not as a structural product, and it's not meant to hold up well in high humidity or moisture environments. So it may not be the best product for Bermuda, but it would be good to test it. Nature Bind is a Spanish product that I'm still researching. So far, it looks really good, and I'll hopefully have a sample soon. Its label states it has no added formaldehyde. Its sealant is tannin-based of natural origin. It's supposed to have exceptional adhesive strength. It's FSC and CE2 plus certified and meets the highest indoor air quality standards. To seal plywood, there are a few ways to go, but the main options are AMF Safe Seal, which is a clear acrylic-based coating that helps to block and seal in formaldehyde, or shellac, which is an alcohol-based natural wax coating. Shellac does a slightly better job at sealing, in my opinion. Understanding that medium density fiberboard and particle board typically have shorter lifespans than plywood makes them hard for me to specify. They also typically require more binder, which means they require higher levels of formaldehyde-based resins and higher levels of petrochemicals to manufacture them into plywood. Manufacture them than plywood. They emit VOCs that are harmful to human health. Also, the regulatory limits set for formaldehyde emissions from MDF and particle board are not as strict as they are for plywood. MDF does not perform well in high humidity environments. If you must purchase this material, look for products with Green Guide certification or similar for sealants and binders. The details matter. Use interlocking joinery like dovetail drawers for strength and longevity. Use dowels instead of wood glue. Choose solid wood veneers and edging. Choose VOC paints, breathable, washable, tough, suitable for multi-surface use. Look for paints that meet the Green Seal 11 standard from 2010 or later. Use tung oil for veneers. Tung oil is non-toxic and it doesn't contain any VOCs. It has a long lifespan, meaning no need for reapplications. It is not only resistant to water, but to alcohol, acetone, and acids as well. Pure tung oil can also contain no solvents or metallic dryers. There's no off-gassing with this product, so you can have, which will have a good impact on the air quality in your home. Walnut oil is also a great natural oil. Be aware, though, that it does darken the appearance of your wood. Consider alternative finishing methods. Susugiban, I don't know if I pronounced that right. A Japanese technique creates beautiful, durable finish on wood by charring it with fire. The process is specifically meant for cedar, but it works on many species of wood, such as cypress, ash, oak, maple, and of course, pine. Use interlocking joinery like dovetail drawers for strength and longevity. Not all hardware is created equally. Specify higher quality brands like Bloom Guides to increase the cabinet's lifespan. Avoid hardware that contains antimicrobial treatments, many of which use nanomaterials such as nanosilver. Nano-sized particles can enter the human body through inhalation and ingestion and through the skin. Fibrous nanomaterials made of carbon have been shown to induce inflammation in the lungs in the way that is similar to asbestos. Use stainless steel screws whenever possible. Steel can be infinitely recycled. I'm currently in the process of designing a product for one of my clients, a healthier option that has sustainability in its DNA. I'm excited to see how this develops and where it leads me. When it comes to worktops, choose natural reclaimed wooden countertops as they are often more durable and longer lasting than new wood. Wood is biodegradable and poses less risk to the environment at the end of its life as a countertop. Wood equals food. The beauty of stainless steel is that it can be recycled an infinite number of times. Use stainless steel in your kitchen design because it's hard-wearing, stylish, and low maintenance. Choose natural stone that is denser or less porous, such as soapstone and certain granites. These products do not require sealing in their life cycle. Typical sealants have, I'm going to try and pronounce this, perfluorinated alkali compounds, or PFAS, which are persistent and bioaccumulate in the environment. They have reproductive and developmental hazards. Soapstone countertops never fade with direct sunlight, something to bear in mind when it comes to Bermuda and our long, hot summers. The naturally occurring patina in soapstone adds to the earthy and organic look. Besides traditional kitchen countertops, I've used soapstone in pizza ovens, outdoor kitchens, for architectural accents, thresholds, and more. Non-porous soapstone has a naturally lustrous, soft, silky finish. You will find slabs in dark green and blues, from light grey to dark charcoal in colour. That's a dark charcoal at the top there. It's a beautiful material. Most other natural stone is porous and does require a sealer to prevent stains. Natural sealers for darker stone, you can use walnut or tung oil, which I just mentioned, for wood. There is no 100% natural sealer for white and lightly coloured stones. However, I've recently found a product called Simple Coat. It's a sealer that does not contain any PFAS or petroleum products. It's zero VOC and close to odorless. This is the only sealant I know of at the moment that will work on light stone and is both PFAS free and zero VOC. The only downside is that I don't know what's actually in it. The ingredients are not disclosed. Porcelain worktops with no added lead. Porcelain is a ceramic material made primarily of natural components, including clay, feldspar, and sand. In recent years, several manufacturers have begun offering large format porcelain slabs or panels that can be used for countertop applications. Their larger size, up to roughly 10 feet in length, allows for fewer seams and therefore less grout and grout sealer. Avoid products with non-specific post-consumer recycled content. These contents may contain higher concentrations of lead. Quartz worktops. Quartz or engineered stone countertops are made by combining granules or particles, often quartz containing rocks and minerals, but also glass, seashells, or other materials, with a small amount of polyester resin added. Polyester resin can contain trace amounts of cobalt, carcinogenic and reproductive toxins. Dust generated from the fabrication and cutting of quartz countertops can contain crystalline silica, a carcinogen. If adequate controls are not in place, quartz countertop fabrication and installation can expose workers to high levels of crystalline silica, which can cause scoliosis, a lung disease. Even when considering the hazards that I've just mentioned, when compared to other countertop materials and the hazards associated with those materials throughout their life cycles, quartz countertops remain a relatively better choice. Quartz countertops are non-porous, so resist staining without requiring a sealer, which can introduce additional hazards. Concrete worktops. One of the key benefits of concrete countertops is their durability and long lifespan. When properly cared for, concrete worktops can last for decades, making them a sustainable option. Concrete does not off-gas VOCs. However, on the downside, the production of cement, a key component of concrete, is a major contributor to greenhouse gas emissions. This is due to high heat required to produce cement, which releases significant amounts of CO2. In addition, the extraction of raw materials for cement production can have negative impacts on local ecosystems and communities. Concrete also needs to be sealed due to its porous nature. Plastic laminate. Laminates are composite products made from layers of paper impregnated with various formaldehyde-based resins pressed together into a rigid sheet. Because it has no structural support, the sheet then needs to be adhered to a substrate, typical particle board or medium density fiberboard, to create a countertop. These substrates commonly rely on formaldehyde-based binders that can release formaldehyde. If possible, specify laminate countertops substrate made with NAF, no added formaldehyde resins, or just avoid laminate worktops. There's another type of laminate which is called compact laminate. It has a higher level of dimensional stability as they do not have an MDF or particle board center, so they're less prone to warping or swelling in changing temperatures and humid climates. I've seen an increase in these on the island because of that fact. However, they commonly rely on higher levels of formaldehyde-based binders that can release formaldehyde, so be aware. Sustainable flooring. Again, reclaimed products are great for repurposing material, reusing waste, and minimizing resources. Reclaimed wood flooring has no VOC. Solid wood is a beautiful product for flooring, but it can warp and react to humidity in a more extreme way than engineered wood. For longevity, I usually recommend my clients to install engineered wood in Bermuda, but always suggest floors pre-finished and made with an NAF, no added formaldehyde binder. Another way of making sure engineered wood floor is safe for indoor use is to stack the wood outside on a covered porch or in a well-ventilated warehouse to make sure the flooring has off gas before it's installed in your home. Using concrete that's already in place as the flooring material can be a great way to reduce human and environmental health impacts by using less materials in a space. However, it's important to keep in mind that different types of concrete finishes can add chemicals of concern. For example, surface sealers used to prevent staining on polished concrete flooring can contain PFAS. Densifier formulations are generally simple with few hazards, but some products may contain PFAS. Always check with the manufacturer to verify that the PFAS are not present in your product. Ceramic tiles can be a relatively low impact material for flooring or wall installation, but you need to watch out for added lead. Lead can come from two places in ceramic or porcelain, either intentionally added to the glaze or from certain types of recycled content that end up in the glaze or the tile body itself. While some manufacturers have phased out toxic lead components from ceramic tile glazes, others may continue to use them. Look for tile product literature that identifies where they've been made and what they're made of, including fritz glazes and pigments. Unglazed tiles are most preferred. Cork floors are a relatively low hazard flooring option made up of natural cork granules, a binder, and a finish. The binders are commonly based on isonates, which are asthmatogens. They can cause asthma in exposed people. This is a primary concern during manufacturing. Cork floating floors avoid the use of potentially hazardous adhesives, so are preferred flooring method. Prefer products that are pre-finished in the factory and don't require additional on-site finishing. Cork veneer products can contain additional components. Always check the labels. Sustainable paints. Lime paint is an ancient technology composed of lime, water, and pigments. Paints cure by absorbing carbon dioxide from the air to transform back to limestone. These paints are non-film forming, breathable, and naturally mold and mildew resistant due to inherent properties of lime. They are also typically zero VOC products. Mineral silicate paint, or potassium silicate, is the mineral binding agent. Though sometimes these paints may also contain a small amount of synthetic polymer binder, seek out products that contain no polymer binder. Mineral silicate paints are naturally mold and mildew resistant with VOC content commonly near zero. You can use linseed oil paint on all surfaces. It protects against weather, wind, the ravages of time, and the changing season. In Sweden and throughout Europe, there's a tradition of using linseed oil paint for interior and exterior windows and door frames. This practice has survived and thrived for 500 years because it works. The fact that it's more environmentally friendly and less expensive makes it even better. Linseed oil breaks down in nature without leaving harmful residues. Linseed oil paint can almost always be applied without the addition of solvents. Old-fashioned milk paint is the faithful recreation of an ancient homemade paint formula containing just milk, protein, lime, and natural earth or mineral pigments, making it eco-friendly, non-toxic, VOC-free, food-safe, biodegradable. It's food. Oro is Ethical Consumers Magazine's Best Buy environmentally friendly paint. Their paints are so natural, they're compostable. Plant-based and free from petrochemicals and plastics, the company are carbon neutral too. The company is based in Germany and they always show exactly what's inside their paints. Their ingredients are transparent. They call themselves pioneers in gentle chemistry, which I really like. Most water-based paints comply with European Union EN 71-3, also known as the toy paint regulations. They also possess other sustainable attributes. They are virtually VOC-free, but not always. So again, check the labels. I'm now going to talk about a project I worked on, a new build project that began in 2019 and was completed in 2022. It was the first non-commercial project where the client and I sat down at the beginning with the mandate for an interior to be as healthy and natural as possible. The resulting building design emerged from some of the macro and micro considerations I've already discussed as part of my strategy to design more sustainable and responsible buildings in Bermuda. It goes without saying the house is highly efficient and low energy. The macro steps. It's designed for longevity. The layout supports the family. Tons of storage now and for the future. There's lots of great sight lines from as you enter the house straight through to the ocean outside. And then there's points within, pivot points within the building itself where you can see in all directions to the outside. The materials that were chosen were researched for their environmentally friendly attributes. We used reclaimed beams that were brought in from Virginia, engineered wood floor and concrete flooring, you can see here, highly efficient glazing, low energy lighting, dark sky lighting for the exterior, unlacquered brass fixtures and fittings, solid stone, water-based paints, real wood veneers and edge banding, high efficiency appliances, solid wood countertops, plywood carcasses, real wood veneers, ceramic tiles, and unlacquered brass and solid wood fixtures. And of course, going through this project, there's always some things that in hindsight you think you could have done better. A few areas such as the plywood used for the millwork, the wood finish, the paints that were used, I would now specify differently. Design is a continuous journey of learning and exploration, and I'm always gaining knowledge so my next client can reap the benefits. As I approach the end of my talk, I would like to circle back to some of those early values I touched on. Every project is a collaboration. If you can start by mandating sustainability early on in the process, building the right team can set you on the right path to success. Think long and hard about the materials you select and their ingredients. Be thoughtful designer, design like you care, and remember waste equals food. Now let's think about that chicken again. Imagine yourself in your new home, organic chicken roasting in your A-rated oven. You might be leaning on a stainless steel or reclaimed wood worktop, looking out at the garden. Your family surrounds you and you feel safe in the knowledge that all the materials and ingredients that make up your home have been chosen to be healthy and natural for you and the planet. You feel at peace knowing that future generations will applaud your choices. I'm going to leave you there with that thought in mind. I hope I haven't offended any vegans with all my thoughts of vegans. It's been a real honor presenting today, and I hope if you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
questions? Yeah, we have.
Yeah.
So you had mentioned about using natural materials, and I noticed about the brass fixtures. What about for exterior, especially with this very humid, salty environment?
Yeah, bronze is a good option. That can weather pretty well. And yeah, I'm still trying to work on that. Stainless steel also, although it's not always the best aesthetic. So yeah, there are some options out there, but yeah, there's not one product that I always choose this.
I just listening to it, it's great. I am a tinkerer, build stuff, and I'm constantly looking for supply for me. The problem is that it's not always bought in, so you're limited to whatever the big supplier will bring in, and it raises the cost if you have to bring in these things yourself. Is there any sort of ideas approaching government and saying we should be restricting this or advising what they can bring in so that us, the consumers, when we go, we know that the choices we have are healthy?
I can't speak for government. I don't know what's in the pipeline for them. But it would be great to see more reuse in Bermuda, some like a network, circular network where good products, good quality materials could be reused in projects. And I just don't know if there's facility for that, or again, it could be something that government could provide, or like a private, or Habitat for Humanity. I know had their store, but they didn't have storage for window frames or beams or wooden floors. It's very limited what they could provide.
Some of the contractors, like we redid our kitchen, and they asked if they could take the cabinets.
Yeah.
That somebody else might use and
Yeah.
couldn't afford, and I was like, sure. So I think that some of the, I think there's pockets of people doing good stuff.
Yeah.
What we need is like a
centralized kind of system. I know, I feel the same. A lot of times when I go into a project and if there is demolition happening, I'll say, okay, does anyone know anyone that wants a kitchen or a countertop? Or, you put it on Emu, you put it out there, Images List, but a lot of time you don't have the time to dedicate to that, that part of the project.
Or the storage capacity and somebody down
And the contractor's like, we need to get this offsite now. So like, I'm in the bad books then. So yeah, it's a difficult one.
Collaboration will help in these areas. But, I see online there's something called GeoShip, I believe, is using the outside of ceramics that are the inert materials to create a better geodesic dome. But they didn't talk about the interior, so I'm glad that you bring out about how health aspects are affected by the interior.
Yeah, it's a conversation that's not really talked about a lot. I think a lot of people focus on the architecture and the envelope of the building, but not what's going inside. And now that we're sealing up our buildings more, it's becoming more important. Even though in Bermuda, you might only seal it up for a couple of months of the year when it's really hot and you crank your AC. But those months when the sun's beaming through and if you have a laminate floor in there, starts to heat up, that's not a good product to be sealed in with. So those, it matters.
Question over.
I had a small apartment and I had air testing done on it by a local company. I was looking for mold. There wasn't any. But she asked that the person in there, when they went to bed that night, it was hot, so it was air conditioned, sealed, 500 square feet. They say in it, don't open any windows until she came at 10 a.m. So that's what he did, and he vacated and they tested it. And she said the CO2 levels were huge. And she said, just tell him that he should open his windows daily. Now that's overnight with one person in it.
Yeah.
And so I was going to ask you about, aside from all the other things that we have to be wary of. And I know COVID created a lot of places where they were hugely filtering
Mhm.
their, recycling their air and bringing in fresh air, which our AC units, split units don't do. Is there any are there any suggestions that you have on that?
Well, yeah, the mechanical ventilation of the building is so important, and it would be great if there was more engineers here today. But I find that working with the right engineer, they can really help design a system that's more than adequate for a family, someone that asks the right questions about what the activities are in various parts of the home. Sometimes that's not even discussed, and they just put ventilation into the bathrooms. So understanding what activities are being done in the home, in which rooms, and designing a system for that. And then also, thinking more about filtering on those systems. I don't think that's common practice here. There's a lot in that area that we need to improve on.
I mean, I know that house, your Harrington Hundreds one. I'm sorry, Harrington Sound one. That one has a lot of, it's a lot of shade outside with porches and verandas and flow of air. And the way I live above that apartment is very similar to that. So I hardly ever have to really shut up the house.
Yeah.
But there's little apartments that everyone puts in their downstairs, or there's.
No, that was designed with passive cooling in mind. So the windows at the higher level are automated so that they can open up and the airflow can come through in the summer. But not everybody has the luxury of designing their own home. So those apartments need, I suppose, building code and health environment need to really think about maybe increasing policy around that. To ensure that doesn't happen on a regular basis.
I think some of it is also, as was discussed, it's the educational component. So thank you so much, Eimeir, for everything you've already discussed in this. I think to your question, that disconnect between you have a larger build, you have more financing to do it, and somebody who's just going to go and get something off the shelf. What are some solutions for that? There are energy recovery systems that you can put in mechanically, but a smaller scale would even just be to put in a wall vent that you would use in a bathroom. That way you're automatically exhausting the air, getting some fresh air as well if you do a reverse one. So there are some techniques, but knowing that best is in the room, I'd like to just submit the thought of, to the point about the government, I know that they are really pushing for just a consideration of more sustainable design overall. Those conversations are actually happening. And so I think the education of, hey, we have Bermuda stone buildings, we still do have Bermuda stone buildings. Can we start to mandate that every paint supply store brings in one of the products that you've mentioned, from a paint? So that's a small step. More education on why vinyl tile is not helpful, and the fact that we don't even have a way to recycle it, period, let alone reuse it. So just things where it could be like, hey, maybe we're discouraging companies from bringing it in the first place. So I just think there's an education component much to what you're doing to explaining why we shouldn't do it, but also the additional lobbying to the government so they even understand the significance of it, I think would be a really great way to kind of bridge that gap.
Yeah.
But I do also have an additional question. That was more of a comment. I wanted to ask, because there were a few things that you labeled, even just being in the profession, that I was like, oh my gosh, the antimicrobial. Could you talk a little bit more about that? Because with post-COVID environments, dealing with healthcare environments, the first thought is, it has to be antimicrobial, because it's a buzzword. It's kind of like organic. You stick organic and vegan on everything and you think it's healthy, and it's not necessarily. So I'd be interested in hearing a little bit more about some thoughts on what else could be used.
There have been studies done. I'm not a chemist, so I'm just going to say that first. I did dig a little bit into it because I was really surprised when I started to read about it, that there are studies that have shown that there is actually no advantage to using antimicrobial products in hospitals, in schools, in any of these areas where they're being sold as, and actually the antimicrobial component is actually it just prevents the handle or the piece of hardware from deteriorating. So it's not actually doing anything for the user. So it's really just like a greenwashing or like a false kind of tag that people are getting, oh, we need to have that, and then you spend more money, but it doesn't have an impact on the user. And then when they use this nano silver, which they've started to do more, that's when I got really like, oh, that's actually quite scary then. You know, when they haven't really tested these materials for human consumption or in environments like the home. So, you know, why would you put them into your house if they haven't even been tested in the commercial or for, you know, hospital settings? So yeah, it's just a beware kind of warning.
That's helpful, thank you.
I was wondering if you had any thoughts on like what type of habits or day-to-day things that people could do to increase the efficacy of being in a sustainable house, like to get the most out of it.
So you're already living in a sustainable home, or?
Both for living already in one and for people who don't currently live in one.
I suppose if you don't currently live in one of the main takeaways, I suppose, for my presentation would be to anything you bring in to your home, really read the labels and understand what the product ingredients are, and then maybe start to cull products out of your home that you could do without or replace. And then if you need to do a refresh, look at the paints that you're, you know, really research into using a low VOC or like a compostable paint instead of some of the products that are, you know, more commonly found on the island. It is difficult to find some of these products here, and you do have to ask, and sometimes it's easier when you're doing a large project to bring in enough. You just pop it in the container with everything else that's coming. But for the everyday consumer, it is difficult. But the more people that ask, the more, you know, the suppliers may look into having those products on the shelves.
Yeah, if I could just piggyback on that, because, you know, education is key. I'm coming from the teacher background where they did construction on a school building and they taught this kind of fluorinated. But interestingly enough, even if you did have a sustainable interiors, one of the things in terms of education would also include how we actually use the types of cleaning products. Like what products are we using to clean? So, you know, it's a beautiful, sustainable home, but are we still using Lysol to clean? Are we still using harsh chemicals that are just as impactful and probably do even more damage because we're using them on a constant basis? So just really a lot of really great
it's
thought, because it's like a knock-on effect, like sustainable home, sustainable cleaning, sustainable, you know, just goes down the line.
It does. It's a holistic view, really, and it's a change of mindset. It's just like thinking about products as food has changed my mindset. You know, you just have to really understand what you're bringing into your home and the value of that product to you and what the ingredients are, because nobody else is going to do that for you. Just like you're being an advocate for your own health, it's the same thing for your bill. If you have the, you know, the luxury of having a building that you own, then you should do the same for the building.
See, I think another advantage of water filtration here is that because if you're running your water, you can see the difference between the in and the out.
Yeah.
And if you find that there's a big difference in your water pressure, then that can tell you a number of things. It can tell you if your galvanized pipes have started to corrode and are causing blockage. It can tell you if your roof is dirty or stuff's getting in the tank. And that will help you know to clean your tank every 5 years and that kind of thing. So I think that has multiple benefits.
Yeah. No, for
Stopping
sure.
things from getting inside you.
And unfortunately, we don't have a similar kind of warning signal or red flag in your interiors. Everything I'm talking about today is invisible to the naked eye. And testing for it is, it's not commonplace. people don't test their interior. They might have a CO2 monitor in their home, but they wouldn't test for VOCs or other carcinogens. That's something maybe we can think about as well as part of the process.
And also, if you've got senior citizens, you've got to be thinking about things like Legionella.
Yeah.
And that's not always tested everywhere either.
No, no.
But there are things you can do to really prevent that.
I had another question back here.
Sorry, I was recently visiting a friend in Australia and she was in the process of doing a kitchen. And what I call corian, I don't know what the generic name is for corian, because I don't know it, I'm not in business. I was surprised to find out that you can't use that in Australia anymore. That it's,
Yeah, well, it's a plastic, so it's basically.
yeah, and one of the reasons I heard from her and looked up was that in terms of the personnel who would be used to install or
Yeah.
make, or I don't know what they do with it, they were getting all kinds of,
Yes, yeah.
I guess.
So they're protecting their workers by, yeah.
I was shocked. They said, well, everybody's got what I call corian in Bermuda.
Yeah.
I said, no, we can't use that anymore here.
I know. Well, being such a small country, we don't have those checks and balances in place, maybe like some of the other bigger countries do. And, trade unions within the workers or the building trades might have petitioned for that to become, policy. Whereas here, it's a lot of people's decision is made on cost. Whereas, you need to really dig deep. Sometimes, why is the product cheap? It's only going to last 5 to 10 years, and you're going to have to replace it. And over a lifetime, if you keep replacing these products that are not recyclable, we're going to end up maybe with the same cost that you would have spent at the beginning. I think if there was some sort of green loan or, a way to help people in lower incomes that could, be able to purchase better product at the onset, that could be a good idea as well. I don't know. Just throwing it out there.
Interesting idea would be to build a smaller but healthier house and incorporate the outside that doesn't get built on as in your living environment.
Yeah.
Being more in nature.
Yeah, I did kind of briefly talk a little bit about that, like building less is going to cost you less. So really understanding what all the spaces are going to be used for and what exactly you need to support your lifestyle, and digging deep into that at the beginning of the process rather than just like designing without thinking is so important.
Any more questions? I actually had a couple of things just to comment. First of all, the group Ethical Consumer was mentioned. That is available online as well as a magazine based in England. So it does have a lot of English case stuff in it, but it still is a really good magazine to give you anything from furniture to some of the foods to cosmetics, whatever you wanted to look at. So that's a good one to look at, Ethical Consumer. I think it's the education that's lacking. I really wish I'd have heard this 7 years ago before I started a rebuild on what was an apartment and a garage, and we just, had no idea. Really didn't think of it. And that really is such a good analogy looking at, when I was eating meat, I was looking for organic chicken, right? And I think a lot of us do. And really think about it, I guess, for the house, really. So that was a really good point. Hempcrete, is that being manufactured enough now to be of use in an industry, or is it still a very niche?
I'm not sure. I haven't used that in Bermuda. I don't even know if that's something that's ever been brought into the island. If there's any architects here, have you used hempcrete? No? No. I think that's more common in the UK, maybe, self-build and it's just the environmental conditions here. I don't know if it would be the right product for a high humidity environment. Right. I don't know. So I'm sorry. Yeah.
No, that's fine. Thank you. Because this is it. It's all to do with education, isn't it? And just one last observation on the labelling.
probably everyone here is already aware, but there are two very different standards. The American standard is for businesses, yes, use it until it turns into a problem. Whereas the European standard is prove that it's not a problem before you use it. So when you're weighing up where to get your products from, if you're looking at America, you need to probably look a lot more carefully than if you're looking at European products.
Yeah, just to add to that, if you are shipping in from the States, look at products made in California. Their certifications and regulations are much, much higher than all the rest of the states. Also, Canadian standards are higher. So a lot of the time I'm bringing in from Canada rather than the US. So yeah, we have options, but a lot of times we're sourcing from where our contractors have connections. Yeah, it can be tricky to ship everything in from the UK.
Very much so, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. And it's all to do with education, yeah. And I've learned a lot today. So were there any other questions?
I have a quick question. Is Silverstone on the naughty list for comfort?
Sorry, say that again.
Silverstone?
It's a type of quartz. So it would be covered under the quartz.
Not so bad.
Not so bad. It's just, it doesn't need to be sealed. So it's just when it's being cut and manufactured, it can be harmful for the workers. It does have some bad products in it, but yeah. But it's not off-gassing into your own.
Okay, that's fine. I mean, sorry for the workers.
I found that truly fascinating, and I think from the amount of questions, the rest of us also learnt a lot, and found it just as interesting. That was amazing. Really appreciate the time that you have given us and the wonderful presentation. Thank you very much indeed. Lots of food for thought.
If anybody hasn't signed.
Yeah, okay.